Ivan.
Dead?
Did you see the sunrise this morning?
Yes. Why?
So Magnum PI, this was my first time watching it. Like, are we actually recording right now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The mics are always hot.
Right.
The mics are always hot. You know, we could just use it from this moment right now, but, you know, the mics are always hot.
It's all good. I'll let you figure that out.
So everyone knows that your brother is a horrible racist that calls people niggers all the time.
I deny that vehemently.
No, I'm sure he's a lovely man. Yeah, man, Magnum fucking PI. Now, I did look up before getting into this idea that I had that there are several other podcasts out there that have attempted what I'm attempting to do, which is review every episode of Magnum PI, which is what's going to happen here. And for people that do know, people that don't know, Magnum did a roughly 20-something episodes. You know, sometimes it was like 21, sometimes it was, I think, 23, maybe even 24, sometimes 22. But, you know, that's why I average it at about 20. Just say 20 or 21. And there's, I think, 7 seasons. Maybe there was a short 8th season that they had to do it because the show, they ended it on a bad note that people didn't like, with Magnum in a weird dream coma world, and people got real mad about that ending, so they brought back a short season, which was really weird at that time, you know, because this is like, I don't know, late 80s at this point by the time it ended.
I'm looking at the IMDb right now, and it's saying 8 seasons running from 1980 to 1988.
Yeah. I think they shot the pilot in 79. So that's what we watched together. Because now this is why I wanted to have you on for the first episode. You've never watched Magnum PI.
No, I was coming in completely cold. Like, and looking at the years this was released and was airing and everything, I would have been 3 by the time it finished.
Yeah.
So, and in this country, I don't think it was aired particularly. Like, watching this, I got very strong flashbacks to watching the likes of the A-Team or Knight Rider when I was a kid. Like, in my mind, at least, there's a certain aesthetic quality to the show that's sort of like, and I guess just 80s stuff. Like, it puts it squarely next to those things in my head, mostly because I can sort of see like quality in the way it's filmed and the style of the storytelling and everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a very 80s tone to it. I didn't see everything that I'm used to now because I know the show backwards and forwards, so it's weird seeing the pilot again because, as you know, with a lot of pilots, as a guy who, on your podcast, the Pop Culture Podcast, for people that have not heard your podcast that are listening to this, they should check it out because I'm not a huge Star Trek fan. I don't know. I've watched all the series. I think Deep Space Nine is probably my favorite. But you guys,
it is good.
You guys so far have done 6 seasons. Is that right? Of Star Trek Next Generation.
Yep, that's the one. We're going into the last season. It'll probably be like a month before we get to it. But yeah, we've been slowly but surely working our way through that alongside doing other bits and pieces on the podcast. Like, we focusing on kind of directors, film series, genres, sit and talk about it for 2 or 3 hours generally. And yeah, Star Trek's been absolutely the focus quite recently.
Yeah, well, no, but as like, I'm an outsider to that, but I loved it. I really like. I enjoy when you guys put those out because then I got like 3 hours of my time covered. I think I'm halfway through the season 6 episode right now. But like, because I'm a casual viewer of that show, but now like you guys break it down for me, so like maybe this is gonna help people that have heard about Magnum PI, were casually interested, and now maybe hearing me and others talk about it, they might pique their interest, finally watch the show. Sometimes people just want to, like me, I might never go watch Star Trek Next Generation, but I love hearing you guys talk about it. So
But that's the point. I tend to do the same kind of stuff with a lot of podcasts. Like, I'll listen to things that I would, like, they'll be talking about stuff I would never, ever get involved with. But it's the fact that it's sort of like, you get to know another show's audience through doing this.
Yeah.
And once you know the audience, you can maybe get like a glimmer of why they like it. And maybe you miss that when you're sitting down and looking, but you can enjoy vicariously the other person's enjoyment. It's a funny chain of events, I suppose. But
it's very
I'm
weird.
glad you're enjoying it. And hopefully we can sit and talk about Magnum for 45 minutes or something. That's as much as I got from the 2 pilot episodes and pique somebody's interest.
So they did classic TV formula that I don't know, I guess it is. It's classic for like a lot of shows tend to do that with the pilot, right? It's an extended length episode. Because
set the stage, get all the characters down, make sure that we've got a kind of typical interaction between everybody, and like we know their relationships by the end of it all, and hopefully we're on board with that and ready to see some more.
Yeah, and typically, like a pilot is basically a TV movie that will either succeed or fail, and judging by how it does probably back in the day, like this is weird old rating system, but like probably judging how the pilot does when they air it as like a special, who knows what they did back then, but like maybe they had faith in it being a full series. I don't know. I can't remember what
it was interesting watching it back. Obviously this was my first time watching it at all, so I was getting that first time experience of like, okay, so I'm being introduced to all of the characters. You get Magnum's voiceover and the kind of
right off the bat,
bit more of a feeling of like getting into his head of sort of like, okay, this guy's got a bit of a sense of humor. He's not completely serious. He's playing happy-go-lucky. Like you get these little hints and things from the way that he talks about his situation, and immediately we're told about like, okay, so he's dealing with slightly seedy underbelly of Hawaii a little bit. Maybe he's got a past. We keep getting the allusions to the past and stuff, and obviously that plays out over the course of the episode, giving us a really solid, firm base for sort of like, Magnum is a man who can be trusted. We know this by the end of this episode, that like he's a man of honor, that he fought for America, he was in the Vietnam War, which, given the time that it was made and everything, like that influence and that generation of actors in particular that had all gone to that war, like it felt like that was coming through strong.
Well, and he's asked at one point why he left the Navy by the woman that he's with in the episode, his quote unquote sister, and I think he said to her, I wrote it down somewhere, I woke up one day and I was 30. Oh yeah, I woke up age 33 and realized I'd never been 23. And then she presses him on this, and he says, look, I don't want to talk about it. Now, here's where I am going to propose my theory. Now, again, you've only watched the pilot. I've watched all 8 seasons several times over. Most recently, when I got the whole Blu-ray edition, and I've been blowing through them all now with less grain in them. I'm like, ooh, everything's more clear. I love it. All that fake shit looks extra fake. But then when they blow up a car for real, dude, like in the pilot episode, a car explodes. It looks pretty badass in Blu-ray when you watch the car explode. So I like the use of practical effects back then. It was a good use of that, and the story is very basic. But my theory with Magnum is he has psychic powers.
Okay,
and it's done. There's particular episodes that I'm going to hit on throughout this series where him or his clients that come to him have these weird psychic powers, and he is totally on board with it every time if it's his client. And then sometimes it's him, and then his buddies don't necessarily believe him, but his buddies who are also in Vietnam with him also have these strange abilities. And again, this isn't fully touched upon in the pilot, because I think we don't even meet his two best friends, played by Larry Manetti and Roger E. Mosley, respectively playing Rick and TC.
TC's in the pilot, definitely.
Yeah.
He flies them in.
Yeah, and he's the pilot. He's the pilot in the pilot, and he's the pilot for the series. He has a great episode where he's brainwashed later on in season 3. Really good stuff. And TC's not introduced to 45 minutes in. You get a reference to him earlier. He says his name. Magnum says his name, because the whole first episode starts with a weird. It's him breaking into Robin Masters, and he basically, like you're saying, he gives all the exposition in the first 2 minutes. You see
These are the people I know. This is our relationship. This is what we're doing here. Don't worry, I'm not really breaking into this place. We're just playing a game.
Yeah, swims in looking handsome. I'm reading my notes here. Swims in looking very handsome for the time with his with that weird thing. I think I remember it happening with Leonardo DiCaprio on the beach. Like he puts his valuables in a waterproof plastic thing and then ties it to him and does his weird beach swim. And it was the same in this pilot. Like he starts his swim with that little his little toolkit with him or whatever, his little change of clothes and his lockpick set and stuff. And Magnum.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was some standard Navy kind of protocol or something like that. That's just part of the training, and that's again maybe a little wink and a nudge to Vietnam veterans watching the show at the time, being like, "Hey, this guy's using techniques, you know."
Yeah, well, actually, this is one of the few shows at the time it came out that was had positive characterizations of Vietnam veterans, like him. Rick, and TC are good guys. They're all running businesses for the most part. Now, I do bring up issues with Rick because Rick is a bit of a crazy man. As we see in this pilot episode, he runs after Higgins, who is being followed by a giant Hawaiian man, by a big Samoan fella, follows him out the club. And Rick runs out of his club, which is known as Rick's Cafe, I wrote it down, Rick's Cafe Americano or something, or Cafe American. And it's also known as the Snow Palace to its regular customers, because it's a cocaine den. And he fucking runs out with a goddamn Uzi and shoots up the fucking streets of Hawaii, wherever, I forget what island they're on, the Big Island or something. But he shoots up the island, man. Shoots up the island. I should know. I've watched it so many times, but I can't remember. But he just fires it. Why has this guy got a MAC-10, first of all? And then he runs out into the street in his white tuxedo, firing a MAC-10 in public. I'm like, you have no authorization for this, dude. You're out of your damn mind.
It's definitely a show of its time. If you think about what's contemporary to Magnum PI now, True Detective or something like that, as much as it's really distant in terms of its quality and everything, these are the things that fill similar time slots these days.
Yeah.
But, we don't have immediate gunplay and coke. It's not just sort of hey, yeah, it's just an accepted thing that there's cocaine and guns here. I suppose we live in a slightly different society. The 70s were a bit of a crazy time.
Oh, yeah, Magnum was very blasé about it. So the pilot episode, which is called Don't Eat the Snow in Hawaii, Part 1 and 2. Great title, by the way. I love the titles of
Wink,
Magnum.
wink, nudge, nudge.
My one big exception with this, I think it's the first 12 or 13 episodes of the series, is the theme song is dog shit. It says do 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 do. It's like some fucking 70s weird fucking hipster jazz shit.
I kind of like it. It's funky.
Not for the theme, man, because it's the classic Magnum theme comes in after that. I think on episode 13 they play it in the episode. I think in the pilot you hear what will then become the theme over certain moments.
I'm trying to remember if I even know the actual theme song to Magnum PI.
Well, I'll play it. I'll play it for you.
It's got a real hard drum beat to start or something.
I think that's the Miami Vice one. They're both
yeah.
That's the thing.
Right, actually, yeah.
Miami Vice
again, so far outside of my living memory.
Yeah, man. But Miami Vice and Magnum PI are two shows that set trends for what people think of as TV tropes today. Things that are
Absolutely.
typical in film is that was groundbreaking for Miami Vice in particular, probably more so than Magnum. But Magnum, if you watch this pilot, beautifully shot. For the time, for the time, I think it looked gorgeous. I don't know.
Yeah, and it shows that they spent some money on it. I mean, the helicopter shots and everything in particular.
That's one thing.
Think about, again, these days, the cost of doing that, you would see people making a big deal out of it, but it feels like it's nothing in that. We had a helicopter, we just flew it out. It's fine.
It's all fueled by
more of perhaps the excess of the 80s, perhaps.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's all fueled by the cocaine.
We don't even care. Of course, we're spending money.
We have so much cocaine.
I quickly put the intro on. Sorry. Oh. We're talking over each other a lot because of time delay, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
No, I just put the intro on and immediately I recognised it, like the actual Magnum intro. So I know what you're talking about. It's equally funky. It's got like a great little guitar riff in the background.
Yeah, but it's better than what they have. I don't know. I don't like the first.
I agree, actually.
And I forgot about it. I didn't know they didn't have the right, like they didn't figure out what the intro was going to be till 13 episodes in. And it's weird that it's still, like, maybe they only ordered, like a first half of a season kind of thing. You know, like in American television, a lot of times they'll commission a 12 or 13 episode series, and then they might extend it to have a back half of a season rather than separate it into 2 seasons. They'll just extend it, which is what happens with, like, as you're saying, shows that would fill that time slot today, like The Blind Spot, or I don't even know because I don't watch them. They're all bad. They all suck.
That's it. It's sort of like, as you say, the tropes and the cliches were established a long time ago, and we're still seeing them happening. Like, they're still like CSI and these kinds of things, where like a lot of the things that Magnum does in the show, in particular, the sort of like the slightly cocky internal monologue, that trait for a lot of other characters, like, it's just sort of a standard thing. Occasionally you get to hear inside the guy's head, and of course he's just figuring things out and what have you. It was a funny one listening back to or watching that first episode, especially with keeping in mind, like, maybe they were playing it by ear. Maybe they were just kind of like, okay, we've got like 50% of the script. We've got these things like a helicopter. We've got these locations. Let's see what we can put together here. There were some moments where Magnum opened his mouth, or we got a little bit of his internal monologue, and it felt to me like they were going like, okay, we didn't explain ourselves properly in the script here. We need Magnum to say something to like make sure that the crowd is on board with what's happening here.
Yeah, you have to.
There are a few points where, I mean, you allude to it as like his psychic powers and stuff. Like I sort of noticed that like he had a habit of saying something and then just luck kind of like comes his way. Like whatever he's saying, it sort of pans out beautifully. Yeah. And there he is in his head like, I don't know if I should really be doing this, but hey, I'm going to go with it anyway, because what else am I going to do? And then it just kind of plays out beautifully. And again, like you've seen that with other characters, but you can see the prototype version of it here, so to speak. Like I struggle to think of many other characters that I've seen. I mean, I have seen enough TV from before that time to sort of think like, were there that many that had that interior monologue going so strong? Well, I don't think there were.
No. He's the, like, he sets it. You know, he's the original mold is Magnum, and he does something. So yeah, he comes in for the very opening, and he does the voiceover. He gives all the exposition. This is Higgins. These are the lads. You know, I love the lads. They're a big part of the show. He always gets chased by the dogs. There is an episode where he like kind of switches place with Higgins. They do the Freaky Friday. And it's really funny. So he's got the dogs, and he's like, "Come here, lads," and he's like wearing like more appropriate clothing, not those 80s short shorts. It's really funny.
Higgins is a hilarious character, just from the perspective of an English person looking in on this show. Because, like, I looked at the actor, because, like, hearing his accent and everything, I was like, I smell an imposter right now. Sort of immediately checked. He's from Texas.
Oh, yeah.
So it's sort of like, it's a funny one that, like, I think the cliche for this one had been established, but the whole kind of like snooty Englishman in charge of things and the braggadocious American guy who kind of just does what he wants and makes things work. Like the clashing of these two forces. Yeah. Again, maybe this show really hammered it home. I think The Simpsons is one that took the piss out of it enough times that in my head, this is just something that you mock. Like the whole like, oh, I'm a snooty English lord, and oh my God, will this American cad get off my land? That kind of attitude.
Oh, it's great. It's
just a funny one to view, probably one of the earlier versions of it.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm just watching this new show, Comrade Detective, which is reminding me a lot of that. It's
oh, really?
This is on Amazon Prime, I think, right now, and it's shot, and now it's a spoof show, right? So it's shot like a 80s TV show, but it was made like this year or whatever, very recently.
Okay.
And then you see what you first see is John Ronson and Channing Tatum talking, like sitting in a movie theater talking to camera, saying, "So we've digitally restored this series from Romania. It is called Comrade Detective."
Okay.
And then you see it, and it's all the actors are dubbed over by Americans. So it's fucking Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec as like the detective captain guy. Comrade Detective, the two leads are Channing Tatum and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So they're just voicing over the actual Romanian actors playing the parts. It's very bizarre.
This sounds like fun. Like it sounds like maybe they watched. I can't remember. Maybe we even talked about this very briefly the last time we were chatting. I think we mentioned Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, that sounds like maybe they watched that and got a little bit of an idea of sort of like, we could do something with this whole kind of forgotten TV series that isn't really a forgotten TV series, but you know what I mean, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, and it's
that
actually
very interesting. Comrade Detective. I'll have to have a look
watch.
at that,
It's
sure.
really funny and it's beautifully shot. It's another show that's beautifully shot, like just like Magnum. And I just wonder, like, it's the same thing. What, like as you say, with Magnum depicting a British. I didn't even think of that because I'm not a British person. I never, and it's funny that he plays a Texan because the character Higgins has many brothers that you find out later through the seasons, and one of them is,
really?
and they all look exactly like him, and he's never around when the brother is. So, Magnum's always like, you're just Higgins with a funny wig on or a fake mustache or something. It's hilarious. And one of them is a Texas guy. Elmo. I'm Elmo, and I'll run the Texas rodeo or whatever.
And this is my real accent.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah, but I didn't even think of that because in Comrade Detective, they depict Americans as being the worst people, which is hilarious.
Right.
Especially in the last couple episodes, it's been super like focused on the American culture, and I'm just like, oh my God, I love it. Like 80s Eastern Bloc, like this is what America is. There's like, one time when I was a kid, I went to America, and it cuts to him on America, like going to New York City, and like a guy like tries to stab him, like hookers are there, like every bad thing is happening at once. It's the funniest scene ever. I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen that in America. I go there all the time. My family lives there. I've never seen it. That's brilliant. I love it. It was so good. But like for you, yeah, like seeing the British thing, I was like, yeah, like no one's really like that. Maybe there are. Maybe there's there's like 5% of British. I lived in London for a year. There's like 5% of people like that.
I did wonder if it was sort of like a cliche, like a character archetype that's perhaps died off a little bit because the generation that the Higgins character comes from is pretty much gone now.
Yeah, they're like they're the old dinosaurs.
The colonial Englishman.
Yeah.
Like the guy that like he could be in South Africa looking like that. He could be in India looking like that. He's just the colonial Englishman. He's pip, stiff upper lip. I've got a way of doing things, and like we run the compound here, and yes, the local savages and blah blah and all this kind of stuff. Like he's that guy.
Yeah, I'm looking to oppress people.
Pretty much.
I have the right way. It is also happens to be the white way.
I'll teach them how to do it, but not quite as well, and then I'll run away and make them pay me so that I look after things for them.
Now,
that's the English way.
I also noticed a thing in this. So Magnum's first mission, he says in the exposition at the beginning, is to steal the Ferrari, which is what he's doing at the very beginning of the episode. And he says a thing that he says a couple times. I feel like they tried to make it a catchphrase and it didn't 100% fit, but it kind of worked, which is, don't look at the so-and-so, work the lock.
Yes.
And so he said
that was laid in a couple of times.
Yeah, usually he says the dog. Sometimes he says something else, but he said that. And then as he escapes, as he peels out, the gates smack the dog in the head. and it was really funny. One of the dogs gets like crushed between the gates. I was just like, "Whoa, okay." You couldn't like
definitely one of those moments that, like, again, you just wouldn't get it these days.
How many takes?
It was some kind of like
was it just
movie or something.
Yeah, but was it just one take or was there multiple takes? You know, like did they like, we're not gonna shoot it again. Fuck that dog. You know?
Yeah, that works well enough.
Yeah, that was a good enough shot. It worked. And like you say, like there was this thing where Magnum thinks everything's going to work out. I wrote down he's a cocky bastard. Does he know that he is actually a TV character? Because he breaks the fourth wall immediately with when he steals the Ferrari. That's like 2 minutes into the episode, he's breaking the fourth wall, looking directly into camera, talking to us, basically, I think. Maybe it's only voiceover, but he looks directly to camera. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, he never talks to camera, but he looks at camera and has voiceover happening, which is basically talking to camera. So I'm just like,
pretty much.
He either knows he's in a TV show, so he's aware of that as some fucking meta shit, or he has superpowers and he's controlling this whole universe, Professor X style.
See, no, I'm far too cynical and like serious about this. I've watched too much TV, and I'm kind of like, it's just written to be aspirational. Like the whole thing is written in this way where it's like, it's written so that Magnum is like, he is the man. Like, everybody wants to be the man.
Yeah.
And Magnum just turns up, assesses the situation, and gets it right every time. Just like he knows.
Well,
he's gone through things, but he's not affected by them in quite the same way as other guys. He manages to stand strong where other ones have fallen apart. Like, as I say, like everything about him is sort of like, I kind of wish I was a bit like Magnum.
Now you say that, and that's how they present him in this pilot, and I think for the first handful of episodes. But Tom Selleck said not too recently that one of the big things that he had issue with, and he made a threat to the producers, was I don't like so the main idea for Magnum was to be with James Bond, America's James Bond, basically.
Okay.
He's just like, and that's how the pilot kind of feels. Like he could do anything. He's the everyman. He's the cool guy. Everyone wants to be him. And
gets all the girls.
Yeah, gets all the girls, a girl on each arm kind of thing, which he does right away. I'm like, what, you're just allowed to touch those girls right away? Like, while they walk with the dogs? Like, that's weird. I was like, this is kind of like, it's like, had a bit of that 80s rape to it. Like, he just walks in on that girl in the shower, who's like his sister, quote unquote. Like, he fakes her. I did like him faking her out. You thought they were going to kiss, and he throws her on the bed. It's like, sure thing, sis. And like fucks off. Just like, all right, that was funny. But he made a point of saying he didn't want to be that James Bond guy, and he threatened the producers to leave, that he was going to leave the show. He was going to go do Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh yes,
he said, "I'm going to go do this movie unless you like you got to ground Magnum, make him more of like an everyday kind of guy, and like not have him be so perfect, like have him have some flaws, because the description of him for the pilot was flawless, you know, to be a flawless type person, and you described it
definitely comes through.
And again, this is why I wanted you to be the guy to watch the pilot episode, because you don't know about, like, you aren't poisoned by the rest of Magnum, because I feel like most people that watch Magnum don't really remember the pilot episode, and they just remember whatever their favorite bits of the show were. So that's why I was like, yeah, Eden's never seen this, surprisingly. I thought for sure you would have, but maybe it's just one of those ones
I've seen a lot of shit, but like my gaps in knowledge when it comes to sort of like, there's a lot of episodes of this. Like, to get through it would be a hell of an undertaking. Like, I could see myself maybe going for like a couple of episodes per season just to be like, how's the progression of this? But I don't, like, time-wise is the issue. Like I say, I just watch so much stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've got like 5 concurrent shows going now, like with Preacher, Game of Thrones, Twin Peaks. Like, it all... Oh, well, there
you go. That's the one you get rid of. You're right there. Twin Peaks, gone. You don't need to watch that anymore.
I will fight you on that.
I will fight. Okay, well, here we go. This is going to be a great podcast event. Biff versus Eden for real. No more hypothetical homicide. This is a fight to the death.
All over Twin Peaks. Oh man!
Are you willing to die for that piece of shit show, Eden? Is it really that good that you're willing to die for it?
I'm willing to fight for it. I will fight for any show that like forces me to like fight through metaphor to understand what the hell is going on.
I only fight to the death, so that is that's a consideration
or
you'll
just
have.
Physical
Physical death.
You can probably like get by on something.
Physical death only. That is all I will accept. So
I can't just break your mind and like leave you a shattered husk on the ground. Like, I mean, Twin Peaks is really well good.
You could do that, but eventually I would like psychically repair, kind of like Magnum, because I believe in Magnum so much. I channel some of his psychic powers that he may or may not have. I mean, we'll find this out as we continue through this podcast. We'll find out, does he have psychic powers? Does he not have psychic powers? Eden,
you have to assess episode by episode. Give him a rating of sort of like how psychic is Magnum per episode.
Yeah, I mean, he's so psychic. It's crazy. I'll just like tease a couple for you people listening who may or may not want to continue listening. There's one where he is trapped floating in the ocean. He just gets trapped there. I won't tell you how. But he gets trapped there for nearly the entire episode, sending out psychic signals. He is floating in the sea for over a day, like 24 full hours floating in the sea. And he's about to get swept away down some sea channel because of the sea currents or whatever. And he's just dog paddling the whole episode, and he's like hallucinating, fighting off sharks. It's fucking brilliant. And he uses psychic powers to get all his friends to save him. It's one of the coolest episodes ever. That alone should make you watch this show. But were there any like standout moments for you as a new viewer? Things that like stuck in your brain, maybe?
I mean, as I say, the main things that were standing out to me in particular was just sort of like how heroic Magnum was being set out to be, and how he was sort of like being shown continuously to like have connections everywhere. Like this guy has got his life organized in a way that most people really wish they could just sort of like, hey, I walk into the bar, everybody knows me. I get to go behind the scenes, everybody knows me, it's fine. I need a helicopter, that's fine. I just pick up the phone. I need a gun, I need this, I need that. He just picks up the phone, he goes, talks to the person, he can get what he needs. And there's definitely a feeling of like, man, my life just is not like that. Like, I want the most basic thing. I've got to go through all kinds of rigmarole. I think about even just, I've got to go to work. He doesn't have to go to work. That guy seems to have it set. Like, all he does is, like, play games with this Higgins guy. Like, just irritate the English guy. Like, if I had an equivalent thing that I could go to where it's like, hey, there's some snooty American dude who wants you to live on the compound, and just play the fool with him, basically. Make sure that he's on his toes all the time. Fine. I would live that life at Harvey. I would be there. I'd be there, like feeding his dog steaks and making friends with them, and like all the kinds of tricks and stuff like that you might expect. And yeah, I thought that was quite a fun sort of thing, especially as I say, going back. And I was born in '85, so by the time Magnum was like halfway through, I was born, let alone cognizant and aware of what was going on. So there's always a fascination to sort of like going back a generation, especially with media and what have you, because it's so influential these days. Like, people pick up things without even realizing it. Ubiquity and what have you, the way that it all kind of gets enforced. It's interesting to see, as we've already alluded to, like a lot of the cliches and tropes that exist currently in television. And I think we're at a point where like everybody became familiar with them. They became cliches and tropes through Magnum, A-Team, all of the kind of 80s, 90s shows that did similar things to each other but had their distinct, like, flavors, shall we say. Then we had a period of everybody's familiar with this, but we're still doing it, and it's kind of like, well, this is just television, right? And now we've gone through a period of taking the piss out of it, I would say. Like, there has been quite a lot of mockery of the kind of, like, hey, I'm a character that turns up and knows everybody. Or that Archer is a good example, in fact. Like the guy that's like the perfect secret agent type. Like,
I was going to bring this up to you. Did you not see the similarities between the two shows? Like, do you not see how much Archer took from Magnum is crazy? If you watch more of Magnum, you'll be like even in this pilot, though, they did a lot of it. The cuts, like one character says something, and then it cuts to a completely different scene, but like with those same people or like a similar kind of thing happening. I don't know what the word for that is, what that kind of cut is, but but it's like Archer would say something to one character, and then you'd cut to like Pam and whoever in the office doing a similar thing, right? Like they do that kind of comedy cut thing.
The line leads into the next scene. Like, I know what you mean. Like,
I don't know what the phrase. There's a particular
throw it down.
Yeah, there's a particular phrase for that.
Like, I hadn't even considered it, but as the words Archer came out of my mouth, and you sort of backing it up there, yeah, I can definitely see that aspect of sort of Archer. Obviously, as I say, it takes the piss out of the situation a bit more. It kind of recognizes like, hey. Like a character that acts like this has to be invincible, pretty much. Like has to be joke level, kind of like capable of ingesting alcohol, joke level capable of absorbing gunshot wounds, that kind of thing. And yeah, in these old series, in like going back to the likes of Magnum, I think maybe I need to watch more. But I mean, you could confirm for me: are there points where like is he shot and he just plays it off? Is there a point where like he's horribly injured, where a human being would actually be broken on the floor, but he's like, "Oh, I just brushed my shoulder off."
As I mentioned, he is able to doggy paddle in the open ocean for a full day. Like he hasn't eat. Imagine how you feel when you haven't been able to have a bite to eat in 4 hours, and then add 20 more hours to that, and then add that whole amount of time to you being fucking stuck in the ocean by yourself. Fuck that, dude. I'd be dead. I would have died 45 minutes in, but somehow Magnum survived through that. But and like they do the thing where like you see it on his skin, like he's all fucked up from being in the sun and the water too long. But in this one, did you not, the very end scene, like you have to wait till like I think the last minute of the episode for him to catch the bad guy, Laboule, who turns out to be none other than Philippe, one of their old comrades in Vietnam.
Yes.
And a lot of Magnum...
The classic kind of turnabout on that.
Yeah, a lot of Magnum episodes have this happen where someone from his Vietnam time will come to visit him and they are inevitably the bad person. Very, very randomly, sometimes they're okay, but usually they're the ones that, whether they ask him for help or not, are the ones that are the real trouble. And
I wonder, like, oh, sorry. There's sort of like, maybe it's from my perspective, like being English and seeing it as maybe a bit of an American thing. But there was definitely, from my perspective, a bit of a vibe post-Vietnam of like, you have your Rambo type character, the drifter going from town to town, the man who's never going to be part of society. He's been broken by his experiences. And then on the flip side of that, you've got Magnum, the man who has learned from his experiences, is nothing but better for it, really, aside from his perhaps emotional problems here and there. And that aspect of, like, you describing people from his past turning up, and they're all Vietnam veterans, but most of them have fallen on the wrong side of the tracks. But Magnum stands as this kind of pillar of, like, hey, you could have been like me. You could have learned something from the situation, but no, you became bad from this. There's an interesting sort of social statement going on there that I wonder if it was an intentional thing or if it was just part of sort of like, well, this is the American way. This is the way that we view your role as a soldier, is sort of like you come back, you do your time, and yes, it's hard, but you've got a place in society when you come back. If you choose to fall out of society, that's you choosing to fall out of society. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But
I didn't feel that at all, because the guy who kind of touts that message in the episode winds up dead later on, but you think he's the main bad guy, and then you find out he's just working with Laboule. But he wanted to deny Magnum's friend who gets killed his military rights and all that. He was a real prick to Magnum, and he's like, I have to work hard and do it the hard way. But meanwhile, no, like, you're a criminal too. You just covered up a thing and tried to steal all this gold. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Trying to act like you're like better than everybody else, and like because he. Well, He kind of had that weird. He kind of had that weird kind of attitude that you were expressing, but like he didn't even really follow through with that because he was also just a petty crook, And that's the core of it. That's where Magnum really kind of hammers home the point of sort of like, you come along with all your talk of Vietnam and all this stuff, but it's you that's the problem. You can talk about how it's the past and how you
these guys got honors that you had to fight hard for. That's not the point. We're not at war anymore. You're still holding on to it, and that's the problem. And that's kind of like, that's as much of what I'm alluding to is, and it felt like that came through to me at least, a certain amount of like, this guy's clinging on to the past. And the other guys, like you've got TC with his helicopter business. You've got the guy with his bar. You've got Magnum doing his thing. Everybody else is moving on and doing other things. This guy's still stuck in the past and like coming in to try and ruin things for these guys.
Yeah, there is a weird vibe of like, get over it. Get over it, pal. We're done with it.
That was the main thing I felt like. As the guy died at the end, I was kind of like, yeah, you didn't have to die, but you kind of chose this, didn't you? Like,
he did. He didn't have to be a cocaine dealer.
They perhaps could have done it, but they could have gone for the angle of like, this guy was just aiming for like suicide by stupidity, I suppose. It's almost like, I'm not going to do it to myself. I'm too proud. Instead, I'm going to go in and say like, hey, you stole my honors and everything, and kind of force the situation as much as possible.
Well, what was the bad guy do at the very end? The main, like Laboul, he's described by that heroin dealer lady who's like 16 or something as a guy who deals in diamonds, guns, heroin, and gold now, because he's gonna get that gold from what's his face. And so, like, a man who lives that life, like, you were a soldier. First of all, fuck soldiers. I don't like any soldiers, really. So I'm glad Magnum left the army. I'm kind of against being a soldier. Even though I love soldier video games, I myself have had soldier training. But, you know, I don't think it's appropriate stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. The show does kind of tout that weird line where, like, you should be go to military, but then come back and be normal about it. And it's just like, no, people are fucked up. But there are episodes that I think cover this where Magnum again, I think this is where it changed, where like Tom Selleck is like, I don't want to be this James Bond bullshit character that you've presented in the pilot episode, like, and for maybe the first handful probably. For the writers, you know, and like then like once it got popular, Tom Selleck had a voice, and then he could make his threat or whatever. Because yeah, I feel the strongest seasons, much like I think most shows are, you know, several on in, you know, like at least the second or third, because it takes a while for all the characters to feel flushed out and like know their place and where they fit in.
Absolutely.
I'm watching News Radio again recently, and that's one where that's an odd one actually, because I feel like within a first, I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes, everyone figured out who they were, and then the stories just got wackier, and then you slowly learn more about them, like the characters, like little intricacies, or like little weird things, like Bill's mom would make him sandwiches like a month at a time. It's just like by day 30, that sandwich.
It never got aired in this country. It's another one, to my knowledge, that never got aired or anything. And sort of, I'm curious if only to watch Joe Rogan in his breakout role. I listen to his podcast a hell of a lot, so I'd be fascinated to sort of go back and look at 20-year-old Joe Rogan actually being funny and sort of like doing a comedic character.
It's where I first found out about Joe Rogan, was News Radio, and then I found out
he was always the Fear Factor guy to me. That was just, he was the guy that did Fear Factor, and then one time I heard him on Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller had a podcast quite a long time ago, and he got Joe Rogan on. Rogan at the time was absolutely like vehement that the moon landing hadn't happened, and Penn clearly took quite a lot of pleasure in like letting him come on and run his mouth and everything. Got him on with a proper like NASA scientist, and the whole thing is it's like an hour of a NASA scientist sighing while Joe Rogan hammers him about like, but what about the flag? What about from this angle? What about from that? And I remember listening to him and thinking, you know what? I don't agree with what Rogan is saying, because the moon landing happened to my mind, but I like the way he's asking questions.
Oh yeah, I like it. I like his question asking.
I gave it a listen. And it's funny because really that's how we know each other, like through that connection, Death Squad, all the rest of that stuff. Just as an aside for listeners.
Yeah. Well, I think you'd enjoy News Radio. I recently, while I'm rewatching it, I had the idea, like, I want to like remove the audience laughter, like the stupid dubbed in laughter, because you don't need it. this is one of those shows that, like, unlike what's that one where they removed the laugh track and it was horrible? Big Bang Theory.
Oh, Big Bang Theory.
Like, you could remove the laugh track from news radio and you would be laughing. You don't need an audience cue to know when to laugh. Like, this is Phil Hartman's last television show. You know, he is so funny in that. And really, for me, this is Tom Selleck's last TV show. I don't want to count like his many TV movies that he did. A weird TV movie series for Lifetime.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a Lifetime show, or like a weird Lifetime series of movies, or Hallmark or something like that, where he plays some weird country detective or something. I don't know.
Jesse Stone.
Jesse Stone. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh man, this is a long-running series according to IMDb.
Yeah, man. This is like, I think it's longer than Magnum. He's been this character, and I'm not on board with it.
This sounds very much like the kind of character that there are a lot of Midwestern housewives quietly at home, like in the middle of the afternoon with a glass of wine, quietly lusting after Selleck playing Jesse Stone.
Oh, yeah, man. This is their wet dream come true, man. This is like another version of Longmire or whatever. Like, I'm down with Longmire, but that's because it has Lou Diamond Phillips in it. But yeah, I can't get down with this one. And
yes, Selleck's not really much of a TV character to my mind, but then he's not really done a lot of film and stuff. He's a guy that, to my mind at least, his time is the 90s, and then after, like, I remember seeing him in Friends towards the sort of, like, I suppose it would have been 2000, like that's when Friends finished, I think. He was in that, and then it's just like Tom Selleck is just a personality. Like, he's just a celebrity in my mind. He doesn't even have to be in anything anymore. I just know who he is.
Yeah, well, he got I think he made big bank off Magnum. Think about like cocaine era money on like NBC prime time. Like, that's crazy, or CBS or whatever it was on. Like, that's like, it's insane money. Like, and then like 22 episodes for 8 seasons. Like, bank. He made bank. And then, like you say, he had a decent run on Friends, and then and for the last several years, again, another show I refuse to watch because I want to keep him in my head as being Thomas Magnum always, is Blue Bloods. Because like he's been on that for
7 years.
Yeah, it's been on forever, and I've never watched it. And apparently, I don't know, people enjoy it. I don't know.
I'm looking at the IMDb. The synopsis just says revolves around a family of New York cops. That is the most simple synopsis I've ever seen. That, and on that basis, I can't say I'm like drawn to it. Like, procedural cop show does seem a bit kind of like, really?
Yeah. It's by the numbers. Unless you're going to be interesting, like Line of Duty. If you want to watch a good cop show, watch Line of Duty. That's British. It's about the AC-12, and they're the cops that go after other cops. It's great. It's a great series. They have 4 series out right now.
I'm not much of an action man myself.
It's not action.
Like the TV that I go for most of the time. But I mean, sort of like anything like that where it's like police, army, like militaristic behavior in any way, shape, or form. Like, I tend to just sort of go, I'll watch.
It's good.
I'll watch Twin Peaks and try and figure out what the fuck's happening.
Nah. Watch Thandie Newton be an evil cop or whatever or something. I forget what she did. She was on the last season. She's the main. Every season they get like a different movie star, a British person to come on and be like the main.
Well, we are in kind of like, we're in a bit of a golden age for television where, like, I've seen movie stars saying, like, there aren't very good movie roles right now. Like, a lot of the best roles are in television. Like, if you want to get, as an actor, if you want to get your teeth into something. And it sounds like Selleck definitely wanted that. Like, he didn't want to just do this popcorn, like, TV show after a point. And I am curious to see sort of, like, is there a lot more emotional life to this Magnum character, like, later on? Like,
yes, I will
get to see more of that background and what have you.
Yeah, I will tell you that he's great. And while we were talking about movie stars, did you spot the movie star cameo in the Magnum pilot? Not counting the bad guy who is also in like a lot of movies.
Oh, yes, I did.
I forget.
Judge Reinhold.
Yeah, Judge Reinhold. That's right.
As soon as you've seen Arrested Development, yeah?
Yeah.
Mock trial with Judge Reinhold. As soon as I saw him, that theme tune just came to mind. The Chinese guy saying, mock trial.
And
man, yeah, that caught me off guard because I was like, hang on, I know his face, and then all of a sudden Beverly Hills Cop came rocketing into my oh shit, it's Judge Reinhold, of course.
Yeah, man, Judge Reinhold, it was a weird cameo. His character's name was Seaman Wolf.
That sounds like some kind of like somebody had a joke there. Like
I know, I'm like
Judge
Seaman
Reinhold had a
Wolf.
second job on the set or something.
Oh my god! And so yeah, that was a weird cameo to see him there. Oh my god! And I love this. So I wrote down. I'm gonna every episode. I personally I don't ask my guests to do this, but I'm gonna write down my favorite line from an episode. And my favorite from this episode was. When Magnum discovers the body of the dead whatever that sergeant or major or whatever that the piece of shit Navy guy when he finds him dead or whatever in the office, he says "damn it" or whatever, and then like this is all like his voiceover talking to the audience. He says, "Alive, he could leave me to Laboul. Dead, all he could do is turn my stomach." And I was like, that's how little he cares about this man being dead. Is like, dead, all he can do is turn my stomach. Like, I don't care that he's dead, actually, but he's turning my stomach.
He could have been useful, but he's not.
Yeah, he could have been useful.
That's brilliant.
It's a great line. Alive, he could lead me to Laboul. Dead, all he could do is turn my stomach. I don't know. I love that line.
It's got a film noir quality to it.
And there are film noir moments in Magnum a lot of the time because he is a hard-boiled dick. And there are several episodes where characters will meet Magnum and refer to him as a private dick, and he says, "I'm a private detective." He gets very offended when people try to like classify his job as something other than it is. And he's often judged for having a juvenile lifestyle. As you said, he doesn't really seem to have any work to do or anything to do. Which is a thing he is faced with many times, and like eventually it is interesting over the years to watch him grow, and it does take till quite late in the show, but he does change his ways, and there's character development that is really good that follows that we'll discover through this podcast. Like he gets deeper, and there's more evidence of my theory of psychic powers because he totally has psychic powers.
I'll be curious to see and hear more.
Yeah, I'm going to find psychic powers. I don't know if I have any more interesting notes I want to hit on. So yeah, Magnum does get shot because you're asking if he's invulnerable. Well, right at the end, he shoots Laboul in the... things end in the episode, as all things should end, in a men's room. Two men getting together in a bathroom in an airport and then shooting each other. But Laboul hits Magnum in the shoulder, and Magnum hits Laboul in the gut. So Laboul's going to have a slow bleed out from his guts, and Magnum's going to survive he gets shot very near where he's been shot in the shoulder from Vietnam, because you see him at least 2 or 3 times in the episode rubbing his shoulder right around the bullet wound area. And then, so at the end he gets shot. Are we meant to believe near that same bullet wound, or... did it hit the exact same spot so it doesn't hurt as bad, or like what happened there? But yeah, several times Magnum does get gunshots, and he lives, which is
sucks it up like a man.
Yeah. There is a controversy, and that's why they brought back the 8th season. Is that he gets shot in the back several times at the end of season 7, and he's left in a coma, and then they like kind of say like he walks into the light. And then it ends. And people were...
Oh, damn.
People were fucking pissed. And they're like, no...
Yeah, you can't kill a character like that with such a horrible kind of... Like, he didn't even have a chance to defend himself.
Yeah, shot in the back. And then, like, his friends visit him at the hospital. Like, terrible. And then I think he, like, floats around like a ghost and follows them.
This is some real, like, 80s TV cliche trope type stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know how to end the show. Like, let's just do crazy things.
Yeah, I didn't care for it. Although, in the final season, they did give a cool episode of Higgins when he's, like, young. So it's sort of like in an episode of Arrow, where, like, Higgins is young and then he's old. Like, it cuts back to... Yeah, it's like flashback to him old on the island. Flashback to him off the island on a different island. because he's in Hawaii.
Oh, I could just imagine it now, like the episode opens and Magnum's sort of like, he's got no jobs this week for some reason, and Higgins is like, oh boy, let me tell you about the time that I went on an adventure.
Oh, even better.
Something like that.
Even better, Magnum leaves because he's got things to do. So it's like a Higgins-centric episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's the reverse, where usually the psychic powers, they come to aid Magnum. The psychic powers come to aid Higgins. They're like, I have a feel. Like TC is like, I got a feeling Higgy baby is in trouble, you know. And then he goes to get him, which is one thing I love. TC always calls Higgins Higgy baby. Come on, Higgy baby. Oh yeah, that was one of my notes. TC calls on, Higgins goes to answer Robin Masters' personal phone, which looks like the Bat phone from the Batman 60s TV show. It's just a red phone that only is supposed to ring for Robin Masters, but, you know, somehow Magnum has given out the number to so many people. So, like, TC's calling on it, Rick's calling on it, and Higgins answers, and he's like, Higgy baby, where's Magnum at? It's just like, God damn it, Magnum. Classic.
I did enjoy it. If nothing else, the one thing that's going to stick with me is Higgins, I think. Like, it's sort of like, I love representations of English people done by people that aren't English. And, like, the whole Dick Van Dyke, he's not quite on the level with Dick Van Dyke when, oh, hello there, Mary Poppins, up the apples and pears. He's not that level, but he's definitely, like, I just enjoy those accents. There's a real pleasure to it for me.
You have to wait to meet his brother from Ireland, who's a priest.
Is he
Oh, Major Higgins, what are you doing today there?
Oh, God.
He's from anywhere, Ireland.
Oh, yeah. Yes, well, I look forward to seeing some more at some point. I probably will sit down and watch an episode or two more at least.
Well,
if only to get, as I say, the flavour of where things are going to go. And I can listen to you talking about it, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, that's my goal. If I can get a couple people to rewatch Magnum, and I pray to God this is one of the series that does not get rebooted, because it will not be a good reboot. If anything, I have ideas. So if NBC or whoever wants to come to me about a reboot, I am like well knowledged on Magnum, and I will, you know, I got a good pitch. Also, I have a really good pitch for News Radio. If News Radio wants a reboot, sans Phil Hartman. But I feel like all those other people would be down to do a show again, a short mini series on Netflix.
That would be fascinating, if only because the Andy Dick Rogan combination, like having heard Andy Dick on his podcast and how Andy Dick kind of wants the dick by the sounds of things.
Well, this has nothing to
hard to tell.
This has nothing to do with Magnum PI, but people listening, if you want a real fun tidbit, if you are a fan like me and Eden are of Magnum PI. Of Joe Rogan and Andy Dick, and you want to see a thing or hear a thing, it's sort of like a podcast, but not really. The commentary for Season 2, Episode 2 of News Radio.
Oh, really? There's commentary tracks for that?
Yeah. Season 2, Episode 2 is a commentary track featuring Dave Foley, Joe Rogan, and Andy Dick.
Oh, wow. You've sold me on pursuing that. Like, I'm always fascinated to get the behind-the-scenes stuff on comedy shows, and those guys sound like that's quite a combo.
If you want it, I'll get you a copy the same way.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I'll find a way to get... I can get you that one pretty easily. But yeah, that for people that want to hear that, it is really good. Look it up. News Radio Season 2, Episode 2. You got to find the commentary track, something that will have the commentary available as well as the regular audio track. But it's worth it just to hear Andy and Rogan and Foley like reminisce. So it's because it becomes more of a podcast because they don't really talk about what's happening on the show. It's not one of those commentaries where they're like you know, they at the beginning when they don't know what to talk about, they're like, oh, look at the stupid clothes we wore in the 90s, you know? Because that's the thing about these commentaries for News Radio. They're all recorded in the early thousands or like mid-thousands.
So even now they're dated. But
they're mid-thousands. So before Rogan had a podcast, but like he had already been into Fear Factor for several years. So it's very
It's an interesting thing going back through his career. Like, as much as I sort of like, I do enjoy listening to him. Like, he's not like a hero. Like, I don't look up to him or anything like that. It's sort of like, it's a funny one that, having heard so much of Rogan talk, there's a funny thing where sort of like, if anything, I would aspire to have him as a peer. Like, obviously that's like a really lofty notion in terms of like, you got to be a top level comedian and stuff to even think about that. But insofar as like, as a person, I just view him as like, oh, he's just a guy that does a podcast, the same as anybody else that does a podcast. It's funny that perspective changes like that, and that, yeah, going back to that time, I can listen to that and probably get a feeling of like, oh yeah, here was when he was really big. Like, I mean, I say in this country, in the UK in particular, he's just the guy that did Fear Factor. So like...
Well,
for no other reason, it would be interesting for that.
There's a very funny tidbit on the commentary track where they reference like what Joe's next show after News Radio will be, and Joe says, or no,
really?
he didn't want to say it, but Dave Foley has like a photographic memory type thing. So if like he hears something, he remembers it. And he's like, I remember, Joe, you were telling me your next show is going to be Joe Gets Fucking Paid. And like, I was like, oh, that's what Fear Factor was. Yeah.
That's it. Because he got his fuck you money.
Yeah, he got his fuck you money fucking watching people eat animal dicks. And telling them, hey, you can eat more. Don't stop now.
I'm guessing that Selleck got his fuck you money from Magnum. Like, this strikes me as the one, especially looking at his IMDb page. Like, this is the one in the chain of things where it's like, this is where you got big. This is where the money was. And as you said, like, you made it as a bit of a joke. And I am saying this is a bit of a joke, but like, cokey times for Hollywood. And you're in Hawaii with a helicopter.
Yeah.
Now, that helicopter is quite a useful tool for certain things. Now, I'm not saying anything happened, but hey, if you want to launder money, television and movie production, that's a fantastic way to launder your money.
Damn straight. You could overinflate your costs like crazy. Also, think about this. They didn't have one helicopter. They had two because they had to film the other helicopter flying.
Very good point, yeah.
Because there's like...
I didn't think about it like...
There's the shots where you see TC and Magnum flying like right over the ocean, and it looks so cool. And I'm like, oh, that's badass, man. And like, and then the other helicopter has to be filming that. And like, so there's two helicopters.
Good point.
Yeah. Those guys are rich with helicopter money. And you think about, like, the city I'm from, Toronto, the biggest city in Canada, like, I mean, I haven't lived there in several years now, but, like, when I was living there growing up, we couldn't afford helicopters for the police. Like, the police couldn't afford a helicopter. They would have to like, hey, news channel, can we borrow your helicopter? Because we don't have a helicopter. And when I think about a TV show that just has like this insane budget for helicopter fuel, like it's crazy.
Exactly. It begs questions. I'm sure it was just a TV production with money. That's all it was.
Yeah. Oh man, those guys.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Fucking Boner City, man. That's what Magnum's living in. Boner City. He's just got hot babes. He's living the dream life, and that is why one of my dreams is to retire in Hawaii with like, or not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to be Hawaii, but it has to be like that island atmosphere. You know, like it was quite similar when I was living in Costa Rica and on the Caribbean side, like just a chill islandy fucking Caribbean heat weather vibe. You know.
Oh man, it's beyond like I can't even imagine it. I've never lived anything close to that lifestyle. I've never been to anywhere that's got that chilled out vibe about it. I've been to Spain, Amsterdam, and I'm English. So.
Wait, isn't Spain chill? My tally fucking goes on about Spain all the time.
I'm an Englishman that went to Spain with an English family.
Oh.
Now, I don't know if the cliche travels internationally, but English people in Spain have a certain amount of kind of like, we are known for just going to places where English people go. So it's like we go from England to a part of England that happens to be in Spain. If you catch my meaning. Like there's a pub and there's all of the same old shit that you see in England, but it's slightly worse and everybody's not doing quite as good a job of it because it's hot and it's Spanish.
That sounds awful.
My Spanish holidays were not chilling out on the Riviera or anything. Like it was drinking. Magaluf is one of the places I got dragged to. Like not by choice.
Well, that doesn't sound
dream
fun.
Of the island, so to speak.
Well, I've never been to Hawaii, so I don't know if like I have these weird ideals of what Hawaii is, because I didn't watch Magnum when it aired because I was born in '83, so like I watched it on repeats, and I just like it was one of my favorite shows ever. For whatever reason, it just like sunk in, and it's funny rewatching it how much of my life is affected by what Magnum says and does, like his actions and stuff. Like he calls these guys yo-yos. He uses the term yo-yos quite a few times in his things. And I often call people yo-yos. Now, and Tally has rewatched the series with me since I got the Blu-rays, and now she's calling people yo-yos too. She's like, I like it. If someone pisses you off, just call them a yo-yo. So it's like a non-vulgar word you can say around kids. Couple of yo-yos with a machine gun tried to kill me. One of his voiceovers.
See, it's funny that you point out like the influence from youth. Like for me, like as much as I hate all this stuff, like I saw enough EastEnders as a kid to have a lot of the terms and terminology and all that kind of stuff in my head. And if I was going to call somebody something offensive, plum. You plum. You absolute plum. And that is definitely like, that's an EastEnders thing. Like that's not something that was being spoken around me as a kid. That was from the TV. And then, yeah, it's funny how these things sort of like click and glom onto you.
Oh yeah. There's a special name I have for monsters because of Magnum PI. The name is Herman.
What's that? Herman?
Yeah. Just call it. There's a thing in Magnum where his dad tells him, to take away the power from things that scare you, give them silly names.
Okay.
And I think I have that episode where he's floating in the ocean in my head, because that's where it happens in, where he sees a shark about to attack him, and he calls the shark Herman, to like take away some of the power from his horrid fear of being eaten by a shark while being stuck in the ocean.
No, it's funny, like when you say you said monsters first, and I sort of like Herman Munster. I can kind of see like there's a connection there.
Oh yeah, I wonder.
Maybe that was the little wink and a nudge.
That could have been a network nudge there. I don't even know. Were they on the same thing?
Yeah, maybe that's maybe
cross marketing
at the time. Like,
those motherfucking Mad Men,
other
dude.
characters to name other characters. We'll get people to watch our shows, right?
That's some Mad Men shit,
kind of
dude.
Stupid Mad Men type rubbish.
Yeah. They had fucking what's his face working for their fucking advertising company.
It's the kind of like subliminal logic that on paper it sounds like it's good, but the reality of it actually working, like just because you heard the words Herman Munster, would you really go and watch the monsters?
No, I'd just go watch more Magnum. Hopefully people will go watch that episode. I can't remember I think it's episode 401. I want to say it's 401. It could be 402.
If it is, then I'm impressed.
Yeah, are you looking it up right now?
Oh, no, I'm actually looking, because you mentioned the two the European girls earlier. I was looking at their IMDb pages, and one of them's got a very unusual credit where her name is Lillian Mueller. I think she was the one that had more of the lines. Oh. She was in Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots as Body of Armor - Athlete A.
What?
And all the rest of her roles, I'm looking at it like, she's been in like nothing. But then to be in Metal Gear Solid 4, I'm sort of like, that's a really unusual sort of voice acting role to just out of the blue.
That's a real random pull to get. That's fucking weird.
The other girl, she's not in anything like
Which one, though? Is it the one? Because one had bigger tits than the other. Which one? The one with the fucking huge rack. My God, I think she was on the right-hand side of him when they walked in. I can't remember.
I think Lillian Mueller, looking at this picture of her on IMDb, like she's a bit older here, but she's definitely got quite a bust, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean those girls were fantastic looking, and I was a little taken aback at how quick Magnum is to just like put his hands all over them, and but they didn't seem to mind either, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like I don't know, like what kind of vibe? Are you? But this is the pilot again, so we've watched the pilot. It's different. I mean, tonally, it's not fully flushed out. I feel like there's a bit more. Well, I don't know. I say that, but like each episode of Magnum there's like 5 kind of different elements of Magnum. Some are like very jokey. Some are like they take place in in an alternate universe type thing. They do those kind of ones where it's like it's all been a dream or something. Like
Okay.
So there's one that is all black and white, and it's just a dream, and it is a film noir kind of thing where they all play different characters. Another thing about Magnum, actors are reused a lot. So you'll see like the guy at the gate when Magnum's going in to first get information about what happened to his friend. He's at the gate of the naval office or the naval whatever air base, and he's talking to the guard at the gate. That guard goes on to play his best friend who works in Naval Intelligence, Mac. But in the pilot episode, his name is Steve, because Magnum specifically calls him Steve several times. And he's working at a gate. Meanwhile, when the show continues, he's brought on as a series regular as Mac, Mike something, Arthur Reynolds something. And he is, a computer specialist guy. And so he's another one of, as you said, Magnum can just call these people. He's another one of these people Magnum can call for naval intelligence information. So he does
He's
have
got a guy for that.
Magnum has two sources. He has Rick, who is tied into the underworld because of his cocaine palace there, Rick's Cafe American.
They're very blasé about the drugs, just as a side note. Like, the whole thing that, like, his friend loves a very overt front for drugs.
Yeah,
like,
it's
that's
crazy.
Just part of the deal. Hey, that's life on Hawaii. Like,
So what? No big deal. This production is bringing in cocaine. No big deal.
I think that's part of the reason why, like, as much as you point out that it is a bit off, but, like, the whole kind of, like, cokey European blondes in the jacuzzi definitely feels like in place because of that feeling of like, it's the 80s, there's coke around. Of course they're fine with him putting their hands all over. They're high out of their minds right now.
That's what I think it is. And nowadays that wouldn't be tolerated because when a woman is intoxicated, Eden, we know full well and right that she is not responsible for her actions sexually, and therefore is not responsible for her actions behind a wheel either if she gets in a car accident while drunk.
Of course. Nothing that a woman does is her responsibility.
You killed a child while drunk. It's the same as if you were, having sex while drunk. So that's rape. So this is murder. No, wait, what? No.
I know that when I'm heavily intoxicated, I feel very sharp, that I am absolutely the same person that I am when I'm sober, and my decision-making is not in pairs. So I am definitely to blame if anything involving a woman happens around me. Ugh, what a time we live in.
I don't know about everybody else listening to this podcast, but I get high on life. Thank you very much. It's this great new strain of weed. It's called Life. I get so high off of it. Yeah, it's really good.
Just sunlight and fresh air, mate. I live by the sea. It's good for the constitution, of course.
Yeah. I live by the sea too, right? That's code for shooting up smack, right? In between our toes. In between our toes, so nobody knows.
I don't know who I am. I have no track marks. I don't shoot it between my toes. I promise. I don't do any of these things.
Look at my toes. Do they look tracky to you? No, I don't think so.
I've faith. Neither of us are secretly harboring horrible addiction.
No. I'm actually. I don't know if you know this. I haven't had a cigarette since mid-May.
Oh, congratulations. That's actually something of an undertaking right there. That's a horrible time just for the first week. I know that much.
Yep. As a person who smokes cigarettes regularly, at least a pack a day, if not 2 packs a day for about 20 years, it's quite a feat to have given up cigarettes. I'm as a porn star once said when she found out she had 3 or 4 or 5 in her, she said, "I'm proud of myself." Yeah, I'm proud of myself too. I'm proud of you for watching the pilot episode of Magnum PI, and I want to thank you for being my guest on this pilot episode. My
pleasure.
I hope I've swayed you to maybe watch a couple more episodes. I could help you out, hand pick a few choice ones for you.
Well, if you're going to be doing this for a while and there's 8 seasons, then there's every opportunity for me to watch some more and then come back and talk some more.
Yeah. Rick's sister is a good one. There's one with Alfonso Ribeiro, a young Carlton from The Fresh Prince.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, that's what's fun about these 80s shows. So like this and Miami Vice, probably Miami Vice more so, but this one still has a lot of cameos from famous people that we'll recognize from other things. And I don't know what their level of fame was at the time of making the show, like depending on what year it was. Like I feel like Alfonso Ribeiro was not a known entity at the time.
Oh hell no!
But
he's kind of only known now as Carlton. So
yeah, he's a one-hit wonder. But he does have several episodes in Magnum in the later seasons. But season 5 has Sharon Stone as
oh really?
Yeah, playing twins. That's interesting. That's one of the episodes where after that episode, Magnum has a crazy beard, and I made a thing on Twitter for a long time of like my reaction if Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton wins the election, and it's a picture of Magnum with his beard, and his eyes are bloodshot red. Like you never see Magnum like this ever before. He's like broken after that episode, and it's great. He just looks like a wreck. He's got this insane beard. He's seeing ghosts. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Ghosts are real on this show. So there's paranormal and supernatural and psychic powers happening in this show. It's very strange. And so there's a lot of elements.
Crazy places.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements. The show touches all ranges. Some are real funny. Some are real deep. I laugh, I cry, it's got all the elements to it. So I hope you enjoyed it, Eden, and I hope those listening enjoyed it, and everyone comes back for another heaping spoonful of the Magnum PI podcast with yours truly, Biff Sweetwater, diehard Magnum PI fan. Look how hairy my chest is. Like, I'm not quite at Magnum levels, but I'm working.
You could pull off some kind of pseudo cosplay thing.
Yeah. I can't grow his mustache. I have tried in the past. It doesn't work.
Oh, that kind of thick, bushy facial hair. Like you could actually like remove it and make a brush out of that. I'm pretty sure. So most guys can't pull that off. I wouldn't feel too bad.
If you are listening and you haven't, not very familiar with Tom Selleck's career and you're looking for other things that may or may not be good, oops, knocked over a speaker, I would recommend a film of his called Quigley Down Under. I think it's from 1991 or 93, somewhere in that mix. Quigley Down Under. He plays a sniper in Western cowboy times, but it takes place in Australia. And stars...
unusual combat?
Stars the late, great... God damn it, now I'm blanking on his name. Mr. Potter. He just died, and I love him. Hans Gruber. What's his fucking name? Oh, that's...
Now I'm having a brain fart moment. I should definitely... Alan Rickman.
Rickman. Boom.
Rickman. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Tom Selleck versus Alan Rickman in a battle for the Wild West of Australia. Side note, they don't treat Aborigines quite well in that film. It's a good movie though. It's a fun Western movie that takes place in Australia in Western times, starring Magnum PI with a sniper rifle. It's weird. It's like I didn't know sniper rifles existed back then, but he's got this weird custom one. It's cool. It's fun.
It's all good. Well, just as we're wrapping up, if you want to listen to me talking about other things, obviously we've talked about the Star Trek thing. Pop Culture Podcast is the main one that you want to get and have a look at. Look it up on iTunes. There are a couple of other pop culture podcasts, but ours has got images of men's heads exploding on the image.
Yeah, that's how you know you're.
So you should.
Yeah, that's the good one.
Pretty much, it is the good one. We have got more lessons than everybody else, and I've got more Twitter followers than all the other ones. So, quite frankly, we're winning.
Yeah, the other ones are bullshit. Don't fuck around with those other pop culture imitators. Go for the ones with the 2 exploding head one. That's the good one.
And the other thing that I'm doing right now, and I don't know if you've seen or possibly given it a listen, is for the very first time, me and a bunch of friends have played some Dungeons and Dragons. Which is not really like, I'm a bit geeky, I like video games and shit, but none of us had ever played this apart from our friend AJ.
Oh, hilarious.
He's running an account called Pretending with Dice.
Yes.
Is the name of the podcast. We've finished we've got 1 6-episode story arc completed. As I say, we've never played it before. It all went really well. It's kind of like, with me in the mix, it was going to lean towards comedy because I can't help but, like, if I've given the opportunity to play a character, I'm going to go stupid and silly with it. And it worked beautifully as far as I was concerned. So if you want to listen to us playing that, Pretending with Dice, if you want to listen to me and one of the guys from that podcast talking about films, media, all that kind of good stuff, Pop Culture Podcast, and you can find me on Twitter at Monkey Magic Eden.
Quick question.
There you go. I'm done.
I like those plugs. Those are good plugs. Everyone should definitely follow and listen to you. If you're listening to this for the first time, these are good people. You said character. Are you doing like voices on this Playing with Dice?
I'm not doing voices necessarily, but I am definitely playing a character with my moments.
Okay.
Like, there are points where I'm going, okay, so this is in character, and then giving a line or something, and it's all theatre of the mind.
Which I love.
As I say, I'd never played Dungeons and Dragons at all before. I was aware of the concepts, like it's popular enough these days that sort of like you just kind of know how it goes. You roll the dice, somebody describes what's happening, you roll the dice again to figure out if you did the thing or not. And it is basically just that, but with the group that we got together and the scenario and everything, I felt like it just worked out very nicely, and we had a really good time, like genuinely laugh out loud from all of us playing it, so hopefully it's entertaining to listen to.
Okay. And so wait, because I'm an outsider, like I don't want to keep talking about this, but like or pick it apart. I don't want to pick it apart too much on this because I want to actually just listen to it. But so how's it work? Are you the dungeon? Someone's a dungeon master, and then there's a bunch of characters.
There are four of us playing. We've got AJ, who has been on my podcast a couple of times.
Yes.
The Trek Talk.
You guys do the Trek
Talk a bunch of times. He is the dungeon master. He's the guy that's got all the books. He knows he's played this before with a bunch of people. He's organised. Then we've got me and Mark, who are the regular hosts of Pop Culture, and then our other friend Jason, who I'm trying to think if he's been on Pop Culture yet. I don't think he has. He's been on. I've done previous podcasts years gone by, and he's definitely helped me out with those. And he's definitely done podcasts with AJ. So he's sort of like a fairly practiced talker on mic and what have you. He's not unconfident or anything. And yeah, the three of us are playing characters. I'm playing a wizard called Prance, who is quite enamored for some reason with making references to Prince songs and like setting fire to things for the most part. In the very first episode, we happen upon a house where a small girl may or may not have been kidnapped, and my first move is to set the window on fire intentionally.
I mean, I'm on board.
Mark is playing a halfling called Bork, who is very athletic and manages to jump on top of buildings but can't swing a sword to save his life. And Jason is playing a 300, I think it was either 200 or 300-year-old elf who has survived many things and for some reason is traveling with this confused wizard and this crazy halfling and is very, very bored of everything we're doing. It is pretty much the straight man to me and Bork's misadventures.
Oh, I like that. All
so
right.
Yeah, that's the long and short of Pretending with Dice right now.
Pretending with Dice. Sorry, I think I called it Playing with Dice. Pretending with Dice.
Yes. Pretending with Dice. I think the Twitter account is called Pretend with Dice because he couldn't get Pretending with Dice. But if you search for Pretending with Dice, you will find it.
Giddy up. All right, everyone go listen to that. And I don't know. I haven't decided what I'm going out on. I think it's going to be a funny line from the episode, but it might not. So people listening, you're going to know. I don't know why we're even talking about this.
Death is part of life. I know that sounds trite, but the very nature of life means that the older we get, the more losses we're going to experience.